This is an electric vehicle with Chinese characteristics. Everyone in the service area is cooling down the charging port. EVs made in China are known for spontaneous combustion. Car owners have to take extra care in handling them. In recent years, new energy vehicles have become one of the industries that the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, wants to use to boost economic growth. However, most of the new energy vehicle companies are operating with high debts and in a vicious cycle of internal competition, thus falling into the cycle of selling more and losing more. In 2009, the Chinese government decided to give full support to the industry by providing subsidies. Some of the subsidies were more than the selling price of the vehicle themselves. Many EV companies sprung up by relying on subsidies, favorable domestic policies restricting fuel vehicles, and playing the patriotic card. That is, creating national brands. But the entire industry is still in a state of loss. NIO, XPeng Motors, and Leapmotor are known as the three little powers of China's EVs. They are all running at huge losses. Chinese media reported that NIO lost 6.056 billion yuan in the second quarter, which is equivalent to a loss of 250,000 yuan or US 35,000 for every car sold. XPeng Motors posted a net loss of 2.805 billion yuan in the second quarter, an average loss of 16,000 yuan or 2,200 for every car sold. Leapmotor has accumulated a net loss of over 12.2 billion yuan as of the middle of this year, and it loses 50,000 yuan on each car sold. BYD is the only car company making profit in China's EV industry, but its profit margin is very small. One vehicle makes about 10,000 yuan or 1,400 at its highest, and just over 2,000 yuan or $273 at its lowest. In comparison, Tesla's profit on one car is 74,000 yuan or more than US 10,000 at its highest, and 42,000 yuan or about US 5,700 at its lowest. Despite already incurring huge losses, China's EVs have started a price war, plunging them into vicious competition. Even the Chinese media are asking. Price war has always been the usual competitive tactic among the giants. How much longer can these new leaders, who are still losing money and have yet to turn their gross profit margin into a positive one, lead in this price war that sees no end? NIO, XPeng Motors, Leapmotor, etc. enjoy an uplifting term in China. That is, new powers in the automaking industry. Yet, what is the reality? These people have no professional experience in mechanical engineering, yet they enter the automotive industry. Chinese people have found that EVs made in China look nice, but are riddled with noises or quality issues after a while. They seem to have all kinds of defects and endless problems to be dealt with. Self-combustion is a main problem with serious consequences. In 2021, the Chinese government reported at least 3,000 cases of new energy vehicles catching fire. They are at a higher risk than traditional gas vehicles in general. Chinese media ranked EV brands in terms of rate of fire incidents during the period 2020 to 2022. BYD ranked the highest in relation to sales, and the top four were also all Chinese companies. Here are some shocking scenes of EVs.
Whose car is it? Get the fire extinguisher. Get the fire extinguisher. This fire is scary. What's going on?
Sometimes, after a collision, a domestic EV doesn't combust right away. Sometimes, the next day, the car suddenly bursts into flames and burns up. The leading EV company, BYD, has many quality problems. Here is a BYD taxi. The brakes suddenly failed with passengers inside. It lost control for 20 meters, ran over a delivery man, and didn't stop until it hit a BMW. It was very dangerous for all parties involved. Everyone look, from here to there, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 stone pillars have been knocked away. The delivery boy was hit and seriously injured. He's from Meituan. I don't think he's going to make it. If you look further ahead, about 15 or 16 more pillars were knocked out. We saw the motorbike. It's from Meituan. Look at the debris. It's serious. For the past few decades, China hasn't been able to build a good auto brand because of the technology needed for internal combustion engines and transmissions in traditional autos. Till now, this country is still unable to produce a decent gearbox or internal combustion engine. The EV became what the CCP set out to make 20 years ago, a product to surpass the rest of the world by taking shortcuts or overtaking competitors on a bend. Local governments and manufacturers have worked hard to promote the sale of EVs. However, in many places, the corresponding supporting infrastructure isn't there, causing headaches to EV users. Look, here, only 4 charging stations are available in this service area, and EV owners had to wait in a long line to charge their vehicles.
Next, we'll scale up NEV charging infrastructure and accelerate the formation and revision of standards for EVs, battery safety, autonomous driving, and operating systems.
Despite the recent increase in anti-US propaganda by the Chinese government, many car owners still admit that Teslas are better EVs than domestically made ones. I feel that Tesla isn't like the domestic companies in China. It's a business, the kind of business that humans should be having. Domestic companies aren't what humans are supposed to have.
Which companies are you talking about?
All domestic companies. I've bought numerous cars and none of them are satisfactory. They all want to make quick money. None of them are serious about the quality. Tesla is different from them.
What do you think of the Tesla?
I don't expect much from it because it's a foreign company. But in reality, Tesla is quite localized, so I can't say that it's a foreign car. Honestly speaking, it's more localized than BYD. Tesla's Chinese procurement is 95%. BYD's is less than 85%. Luckily, this owner didn't have little pinks around, or he might be under attack. The EV owner here who spoke his mind wasn't so lucky. He almost got caught up in a mob. The 1.3 T6 AT sells for 70,000 yuan. It's 10,000 times better than the BYD Seagull you bought. 100 times stronger than that Dolphin. Are you here to speak for the US? How can you say that a domestic car isn't good enough and complain about this and that? It's made in China. I have to film this.
Don't leave yet. You're defending the Americans.
What's so great about Americans? What product? Damned product. I'm just talking about the product quality. Is it right to only allow people to say nice things about domestic brands? I don't think so.
BYD is good.
You don't have to yell all the time. Your head needs to be cleansed. Your mind needs to be straightened out. This BYD rental car is the king of spontaneous combustion. It's a situation created by people like you who have no brains. It's true. The CCP has big plans for national brands of scale, from the C919 aircraft to automobiles and even high-speed rails. It expects them to be sold around the globe, like Europe and the US. It would be a testimony to China's industrial strength that has gone from being a big manufacturing country to a powerhouse in the world. Therefore, the CCP is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve this kind of ambition, despite the fact that the more China sells its EVs, the more it loses, and that it's bleeding money exporting them. But the CCP isn't concerned. China's EVs have become the pride of the party, something to show off in front of the international guests. The visiting governor of California, Gavin Newsom, took a test drive in a Chinese-produced EV on October 24, 2023, in the southern Chinese tech hub of Shenzhen. Newsom, who started a week-long visit to China, placed a particular focus on climate action during his trip and took an interest in Chinese solutions of tackling climate change and the transition to green energy. The governor stopped off at Shenzhen's Antwell Hill bus depot to learn more about the city's fully electric bus fleet. Shenzhen became the first major city around the world to transition to an all-electric bus and taxi fleet, with around 16,000 electric buses currently in operation.
We're here because of the scale and the scope. This is not small. You guys are doing things at a level that's not being done anywhere else in the globe. And so we're here in that light, that inspiration, also in the spirit, as you say, of partnership. We've been working together for decades. This is a preview of things to come, and this we don't have yet in the United States. But the fact is, so much of that technology, so much of that inspiration, the R&D, we developed, but it's now being transferred across the globe.
At the very beginning, we really faced a very big challenge of not having enough land and bus charging facilities in Shenzhen. We have a very huge bus fleet. We cannot afford at the beginning to have one terminal for one bus. So we had to develop the sort of a multi-gun on charging technology.
Data shows that the sales of EVs in China increased significantly recently. XPeng Motors delivered 20,002 new cars in October 2023, a year-on-year increase of 292%. NIO delivered 16,074 vehicles in October, a year-on-year increase of 59.8%. Leapmotor delivered 18,202 vehicles in October, a year-on-year increase of 159%. Since there is no worry about expanding sales at a loss, it seems that the prospects for China's EVs must be good, right? But a black swan appeared. Look, this black swan fell from the sky and smashed the car window. It laid in the grass barely alive. In overseas markets, what is the black swan of Chinese EVs? A relatively small change is what's happening in the Israeli market. This market is one of the most important export markets for China. According to rough estimates by industry insiders, nearly 20% of the EVs exported are sold to Israel. NIO, XPeng, and Leapmotor are also expanding in Israel. At the end of September, XPeng Motors just shipped a batch of 750 EVs from Guangzhou to Israel. Leapmotor opened a number of stores in Israel at the end of 2022, making Israel its #1 export market. BYD, China's largest EV maker, has about a 33% market share in Israel. Its overseas model, the ATT03, won the cumulative sales title for pure EVs in Israel from January to August 2023. Currently, the Israeli government is actively pursuing a policy to promote EVs. Since the end of September, Israel has been in a state of war due to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The CCP had refused to condemn Hamas, which carried out terrorist attacks on Israel, and instead played up the tragic situation in the Hamas-entrenched Gaza Strip during the Israeli counterattacks, inciting anti-Israeli sentiment and creating uncertainty in Israel-China relations. Israel has turned against Chinese products after the recent conflict. It should affect the sale of Chinese products in Israel, including, of course, electric cars. The second factor has far-reaching implications. China's electric cars are expanding massively around the world, with half of them exported to Europe and the second largest export market being Asia. BYD has already entered Norway, Germany, Singapore, Brazil, Japan, and other markets. And China's EV exports were $2.5 billion in 2020 and $22.62 billion in 2022, a soaring growth rate. An expert on China said on the Power of China podcast, We find that by the first half of 2023, nearly 40% of the world's exported electric vehicles came from China. For a long time, Europe's attitude towards the CCP has been much milder than that of the US. But in the second half of 2023, the EU suddenly saw a surge in hostility to China's state-subsidized dumping practices. In September, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced the Commission's plans to launch an investigation into electric vehicles imported from China. On October 4, 2023, the European Commission announced the official launch of a countervailing investigation into Chinese electric vehicles, which is expected to last no more than 13 months. Temporary countervailing tariffs can be imposed within 9 months after the investigation is initiated. The EU made it clear in a communiqué that it has collected enough evidence to prove that Chinese automakers benefit from government subsidies. These subsidies have allowed the market share of subsidized imported products to rapidly increase in the EU, thereby harming EU industry. The communiqué emphasized, various grants, loans, export credit lines have been provided by China's state-owned banks or the underwriting of bonds by state-owned banks and other financial institutions on preferential terms, along other evidence. In addition, the communiqué also mentioned various favorable tax treatments as well as raw materials, input materials, and parts provided by the Chinese government. The EU believes that in the future, the number of Chinese EVs entering EU markets may increase significantly. We speculate that the EU may eventually impose tariffs to protect European producers from competition to some extent. In response, China's Ministry of Commerce issued a statement that the EU decision lacks the support of sufficient evidence and does not comply with the relevant trade rules of the World Trade Organization. And China is strongly dissatisfied with the investigation. Not only that, the EU quickly launched a second anti-subsidy investigation against China within a few months, this time targeting the steel industry. In China, steel plants, especially large steel plants, are basically state-owned enterprises and are managed by the China Development and Reform Commission. These companies can obtain support such as free land, low-price energy, government funds, and low-interest loans. Most Western companies are private companies. This means that the CCP is using the power of the whole country to compete with foreign private companies. The CCP acknowledges that it has a national system that is different from that of Western countries and considers it as China's institutional advantage. Under this system, industrial development is directed and controlled by the government. In some so-called priority industries, the government can concentrate all resources and provide various subsidies to help enterprises develop rapidly and capture the international market while destroying industries in the West that consist of private enterprises, such as clothing, toys, solar energy, steel, etc. The EU is now fighting back. The CCP didn't expect that the anti-subsidy and anti-dumping storm would come so quickly. China believes that the above-mentioned actions by the European side have disrupted the international trade order, increased downstream production costs, and impacted consumer interests. These actions are not conducive to the stability of the global industrial and supply chains, to the long-term development of domestic industries, and the healthy operation of the market. China consistently advocates for the reasonable and prudent use of trade remedies and firmly opposes the unilateralism and protectionism associated with the abuse of such measures. We will closely monitor the follow-up actions of the European side. In addition to the harm caused by dumping, countries should also be vigilant towards EVs from China. Why? These EVs all have many cameras, voice monitoring, and collect different kinds of surveillance data. It will pose the problem of privacy invasion and national security. In particular, EVs are equipped with more means of surveillance. In addition to conventional cameras and voice recorders, they even have body sensory detection, including detection of weight and body weight, as well as the ability to take pictures of people's audio, voice prints, and even pupils and more. They can easily track personal details and history such as conversations in the car, text messages by car owners, and mobile phone communications. It can monitor everything. These technologies invade the privacy of citizens and can even result in a kind of targeted group surveillance. it poses a great danger to people around the globe. The CCP is undoubtedly aware of these advantages of domestic EVs. In the future, a car will no longer be defined as just a car, but a mobile computing platform. The platform generates a large amount of data every second, and the data needs to be collected and analyzed by algorithms to improve the vehicle's performance. Therefore, LLMs will bring unimaginable changes to the automotive industry.